The crash bros will go, here are the reasons you should not take action. Right now, they can say, election year, what's going to happen with rates, what's happening with home prices. And none of us said, what's going on in the market tells us when to buy. The biggest focus was, are you ready?
Yep.
Right. And if the person is asking the internet, should I buy a house? They're not ready, right? I agree with you, Mike. But if you're ready, then it comes down to, did you find a great deal? And that's where the shift is.
Folks, we've got to talk about the housing market. Not only housing market today, but where does the housing market go from here? Supply is changing. Demand is changing. Interest rates are changing. And the economy is changing. I think there's a lot of cross currents going on. I think there is a lot of opinions, a lot of discussion about corner cases. I just want to talk about the housing market with my two best friends, Dion and Matt, the lumberjack landlord, because I think there's a lot we should get into about supply and demand. Dion, how are you?
Howdy, I'm doing great. I like this subject because I think the three of us have different opinions.
I do think we do as well. And Matt, you are still celebrating your trip in Vegas, right? We don't take vacations anymore. You are on a
No
trip.
vacations.
No vacations. How are you?
I'm doing great. My kids and we have done a lot. We have done a lot. So it's good. But Vegas is an amazing city. Love it here. And house shopping for sure. So excited.
Whoa,
Excited
home
to
shopping. I like it.
yeah, excited to move that ball forward for sure.
Nice, nice. Well, Dion, as always, you are the one that plans ahead. You brought this topic to bear, so I will allow you to start. Where do you want to go first?
So when it comes to the housing market, I think the first thing to get out of the way is the crash bros always have a great reason to not take action. Is there anything that we see in the housing market that says, don't take action?
Matt, you want to go first?
Is there anything in the housing market that says don't take action? I don't think there's anything that says don't take action and do your homework. I don't think there's anything that says, hey, now's the right time to just start ignoring everything. I think now's the time where you double down, you double press in, because that's going to be where whatever that asset is, right? No one can predict if it's going to be, small multifamily or single family or mixed use or commercial, or no one knows exactly what that asset's going to be that's going to go on sale first. But, for me, I mean, 1,000%, I've spent more time doing homework now than I usually spend because I want to make sure that I know more about my market than I've ever known before, because that way I can really start to understand where the cracks in the armor are going to occur. So I think, just like anything, now's the time to double down. Now's the time to get more focused and recognize that there's a bunch of assets that probably don't work in your market. I just had a call yesterday with an investor that's based just outside of Boston. It's a very expensive market, very expensive. You're talking about $1 million duplexes. And he's like, I can buy it, and then with what the rents are, he's like, I can write a check for $500 a month.
Oh,
And I said, well, here's the best part: don't do that, and just write me a check for $500 a month.
Yeah, we're good. Keep it ready.
I can help you. So, but I talked to him. I said, it was really funny. This is a guy who's invested for 15, 20 years. He's more of a flipper. And he's made a ton of money, but he can't find deals anymore. And this is what you and I, the three of us, have talked about for a long time, which is when you're a one-trick pony, no matter how amazing the trick is, eventually that juice runs out. And so now he can't find inventory to flip. So how does he make money now?
Yeah, the
It's going to be
seasons.
dicey.
Yeah. One of the things that I have come to tell people is, if you ask me, like, I get comments almost every day, should I buy a home? Should I buy a home? Should I buy a home? And my answer is, if you're asking some guy on the internet, the answer is no, you shouldn't buy, right? It should be a brain dead simple decision in this market. Rates are high, prices are high. I happen to be a cash flow investor and only do so when I can find a great deal. I happen to believe and see evidence that you can still do that. It's just hard. I don't believe in buying $1 million duplexes where I have to write a $500 check, aka alligators. It's not my thing. To Matt's point, send the money to me. I promise, no repair expenses. It'll only be 500.
Mhm.
But yeah, if you ask a guy on the internet, you ask anybody on the internet for an opinion, you're not ready. It
Yeah.
should be rock solid simple. I obviously have very strong opinions about single family. I see tremendous opportunity coming in the larger kind of multifamily. I've been setting up for that for a year and a half. It's slower than I would like, but I'm more excited about 2024 than I was 2023. So, but at the end of the day, if you're wondering if you should, you probably shouldn't. If really seriously, if you're wondering, should I buy? Like, if that's a thought, the answer is probably no. You're not ready. My opinion.
Well, the reason I'm glad we talked about this first is because the Crash Bros will go, here are the reasons you should not take action. Right now, they can say, election year, what's going to happen with rates, what's happening with home prices. And none of us said, what's going on in the market tells us when to buy. The biggest focus was, are you ready?
Yep.
Right. And so, and if the person is asking the internet, should I buy a house? They're not ready, right? I agree with you, Mike. But if you're ready, then it comes down to, did you find a great deal? And that's where the shift is. That, you know, Matt has a friend who is a one-trick pony for 10 years. I was a one-trick pony for 10 years, right? Just every 2 years, year and a half or whatever, buy the next duplex, house hack a fourplex, find cash flow. Couldn't do it for a while. So I changed from speed to days on market. I expanded my market out about another 30 minutes, narrowed down from 11 new markets down to 2 that made sense, found deals that made sense because of days on market, because of all that. I was ready. And then I found the great deals.
Yep.
I'm excited about 2024 because I think there's a lot of fear and uncertainty in an election year. And that's going to cause so many more great reasons for the Crash Bros to have the next crash right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
As you've said before, Zuber, every Crash Bro video eliminates 2% of the competition.
Yeah, I love Crash Bros. Keep it up. I mean, it makes my job easier. And the thing about Crash Bros that I really want to highlight is it is most obvious to see their impact on demand. But where I sit, that's interesting, right? 2% of competition goes away is awesome. But you guys, the audience needs to know that the Crash Bros are scaring sellers as well.
Sure. Of
Right. So
course.
they're scaring sellers. They're getting nervous. They hear this is what happens. And again, I want great deals. So if Crash Bros want to scare a seller who lists a property at what they deem a fair price, then it's on the market for 7 days with no offers and no showings. And then they flip out and they want to drop it 20% because they're in that situation. Fine by me, right? Folks, the last 2 or 3 years is not a normal market. If your only basis is 7 days and 5 cash offers, that's not normal. We're heading back to a normal market. So I expect Crash Bros to do their job and scare sellers, and I'll make some money. They did that for me in December of 2022, and I made $100,000. So I
Mhm.
documented it on the website or on this channel. So thank you for that. I look forward to them doing it again.
Yeah, I
I
think
think,
the
go ahead,
gap
Matt.
the gap continues to remain. It's, people that feel versus people that know. People
Yeah.
that think versus people that know. And so if it's, I would always tell other executives that I worked with, if it's your feelings against my feelings, we can talk about it. If it's your feelings against my facts, I win.
Mhm.
It's just that simple. And so at the end of the day, people don't want to be on fact finding missions very often. They're very often going into a completely biased and trying to get, that negativity bias supported by facts.
Mhm.
It's a tough way to live life. And at the end of the day, fine, stay out of the game. I don't
Mhm.
care. I mean,
Right.
good, stay out. It's fine. Or on the websites where I see them saying, it's not really a cash flowing deal, but it's a good appreciation deal. Based on what? How much? What do you know? What do you know about it being a good appreciation deal? Can you tell the future? You have no idea. And these people have not invested in 5-year down markets like we did. Like when
Mhm.
you invest in a market that was down 5 years in a row, the only thing that mattered and the only thing that the bank would write paper on
Hmm.
was stuff that had cash flow. That's it.
Well, there was a time. I mean, let's just have this conversation. There was a time near the end of that 5 years where banks weren't writing paper on investment loans. You had to go hard money or private money,
Correct.
and that was expensive. I was paying 12% and 3 points,
Yeah.
65% LTV,
Wow.
all day long. I was buying every month a couple. It just Okay, let's do another one. Let's do another one.
So when it comes to the housing market, we talk about supply and demand, and there's a lot of different factors, and there's a lot of people who massage the numbers to make their narrative sound more attractive. The next crash, we've obviously seen every 2 days, you can come up with a new reason where you can show the fancy chart, right?
Yeah.
Can one of you take a second and explain to anybody watching what the rate lock is?
Mike, go ahead.
So what I would call the interest rate lock-in is essentially really the key is the Fed broke the housing market, right? So let's step back and talk about that. The normal housing market, you have first-time home buyers at, typically speaking, at 8 years on average, they move. So what a move looks like is they sell that first-time home to a new first-time home buyer, and they generally take their equity and they do what's called a move up. They're the move up buyer. Then after a move up buyer is a luxury purchase sometime later. What the Fed has essentially done is broken that cycle. We are already seeing people stay in their homes longer. It was 8 years, it's now 12. And I have a fear it will be longer. And the interest rate lock-in is really important for a couple reasons. Because A, people are locked in today below rent. So for all the people that say unemployment is going to skyrocket and all this inventory is coming, you don't understand basic math. Second, FHA and other organizations have further extended their COVID packages for people in trouble and added new tools. So sorry, that's not coming. And it's just, and then lastly, even if you wanted to move, you might not get a yes answer from a bank, right? Your payment today is $1,300. You want that extra bedroom in that new school, your payment goes from $1,300 to $2,900. You don't qualify. So the housing market is broken, or rate lock-in is broken because some of you don't have options. You can't move, and others of you won't move because the payment delta is too high. So the housing market is just fundamentally broken. It will be broken for years. And the way you and I would measure it is average duration. Average duration or churn is what we'll track.
So thank you for that, Zuber. A lot of people understand the rate lock, and we're going to have a brief Dion talk on a new concept for the kids in the back of the room that like to talk to each other, not listen to the teacher. Grab a pen.
Nice.
One of the things that's breaking the housing market right now is the rent lock.
Yep.
We have a lot of people who would sell a house, but they have such a low interest rate, they're hearing that that's the asset. And you said they're trapped in a house that has a payment lower than the rent, so they can get rent that's more. So when we have programs that come out like the ORaaT that the lumberjack tripped into, fell on his face in, right? They say rent is 3,000, we'll pay you 3,500 or whatever the math was. It was a significantly higher amount. So right now there's a Section 8 program for immigrants, and Ken and Daniil were talking about this, where 3 million people came into the US last year, and a lot of cities have bought thousands and thousands of units that they're paying more than area average rents on. So if you're a landlord that was thinking of getting out, hey, there's this low-hanging fruit of more rent for at least a year. And then we had, in 2023, we had a 12% increase to basic allowance for housing for military. And then on top of that, this year it hit 3% increase again on top of the 12%. So if you're on a military installation or any college where people can use the GI Bill, rents have pushed up. And then you have remote work has pushed people out to where they can drive, once or twice to the office instead of 5 times. So now they're out. This is how I found my last deal. They're out an hour and a half, 2 hours from where they had to be before, but they can't buy. Right? Their company might call them back to the office next year. So why buy 2 towns over when you might have to start commuting every day? So the rents have pushed up. So a lot of people that have supply that would be listed on the market is being held in place because, I want to say it sucks to say this, rents go up. I did the binder strategy in November and December, and starting this month, I'm seeing a little over a $3,200 increase to my income because I had 10-minute conversations with tenants and talked about what's happening with Section 8. Even that for Section 8 for 2024, they use the last 7 years of data, right? The last 2 aren't factored in. They look at the previous 5 and they take an average. 2021 and 2022 are starting to be factored into that when we had this massive jump after the 2020 events. And so we have the rate lock and the rent lock.
Dion, those are all lies. It's just greedy landlords that keep on raising the prices. That's what's happening.
You know, when people say things like that about me, you know how I sleep?
Well,
On my lumpy mattress full of cash.
I mean, again, this is the comment that I see most often on my videos is that landlords are leeches and that we've made housing unaffordable. You dopes, you lazy dopes. Get your act together, learn something, watch something other than a Crash Bro channel, and actually learn how markets work. You know what the biggest impact to my rents were? The biggest by far. It was $51 billion that the government decided to give to anybody that had a heartbeat. They didn't have to qualify for anything. It was a $51 billion that they gave them where they allowed, and all I did was leverage the program. I actually took the time to read something. And you know what? It wasn't a book, but it was a bill. And so I read through it, and guess what the bill said? The bill said 200% of FMR is what they were approved to rent out for. 200%. So what I did was I said, that's my number. That's the number now. That's what I'm going to rent out for because that's what I can rent out for. So at the end of the day, everybody can blame landlords all they want. It was the market, the government pushing the market up. It was not landlords. It was the government. Because if I have to choose between $3,000 a month guaranteed or your $1,800 a month that I might get with the pandemic going on, guess what? I'm taking the 3G guaranteed.
Yeah. No, all day. Well, let's talk because Ken and his wife Danielle had an interesting conversation. I only watched the first 10 minutes or so I didn't see the complete picture, but it did get me thinking. He was talking about the illegal migration, and I don't know what the true numbers are. The southern border appears to be open. Several million people are here that shouldn't be here. It's a national disaster and frankly a disgrace. But if we just stick to housing, those people need to be somewhere.
Yep.
Now, they need to be somewhere short term, which I think all these sanctuary cities are doing whatever they're doing. I'm looking longer term, right? If they're not found and deported, they're here, right? So at some point, they will become a part of the economy, probably not legally, probably cash business or however that works. But then that they'll want to rent somewhere. And when I look at that, I'm like, well, they're not going to be renting the Class A buildings, very likely. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
It's going to put demand on entry level stuff. I just don't
It's
know
gonna-
how it doesn't add demand.
It's going to put demand for slumlord properties because they don't monitor the fact that you move 8 people into a unit, right? Like that's largely speaking, that's what immigrants do in immigrant focused cities. It is 6, 8, 10, 12, and they pay the rent in cash. And the slumlord, this is how slumlords stay alive. This is how they stay alive because everyone wants to say that there's no purpose for a slumlord. I hate their business too. I couldn't run my business the way that they run their business because it has no human element to it. So I couldn't do that. But there's a place for them. Like it or not, there is a place for slumlords. And it's often at the very bottom of the ladder. In a place where it's like somebody is saying, I don't care that it leaks. I don't care. I see mold. I don't care that there's, that there's rats or whatever. I don't care about any of those things because at the end of the day, it's a roof over my head. And I'm paying $1,000 a month instead of market, which is 1,800 or 1,600. So landlords, slumlords have their place. It's sad, but that's all
horrible.
this is going to do. It's all this is going to do.
So when I play that out, I agree, right? They're going to find a way to be housed, probably large number of them in a small space. It's just how I've seen it work.
Agreed.
But where my brain went, oh my God, we don't have that stock already, right? That stock is being picked over by guys like us to make better, right? So that supply is dwindling. There's already people in that supply. Where are they going to go? It's just going to be it's just going to push people. And when you push people up in limited supply, prices go up.
But that's the bigger thing, Mike, is it's going to push pricing higher.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to be you're paying more for less. You're paying $5,000 for a 240,000 mile Accord that's 15 years old. When that car 2 years ago, 3 years ago was a $2,000 car. And that's the bigger concern that I have is it keeps slumlords in business. It makes buying those assets very difficult because slumlords are taking cash. Slumlords are taking cash, and are they reporting all of it? No, but they
No.
look at that asset
No.
as a massive cash cow now.
How many slumlord properties you buy in the last 4 years?
Oh my word. 15. At least 15.
Dion?
I bought one. It was a
Yeah.
trap house, basically.
Yeah. I think I bought 6 or 7. I mean, for 2018 to 2021, I bought 56.
Yeah.
About 56. Those were all flips, right? I took slumlord properties and turned them into pride of ownership. So I know, at least in Fresno, like if I go back to Fresno and I think of slumlord properties in like 2015, this is just a wild ass guess. And it's probably wrong, but I'll do it anyway. I would have guessed like 3% of the rental stock would have been classified as slumlord stuff. Today, it's probably less than 1%.
It's not
Because
a lot.
it's not a lot because there's a lot of guys. The last 5 years, 6 years, there's a lot. I mean, that's in my market. That's where the wholesalers went.
Yes.
Wholesalers found slumlords.
Yep.
They offered cash.
Yep.
Then they sold it to guys like me that flipped it. So it's all about supply. I mean, if we're adding all this demand, which I don't know how it doesn't, and the supply is already being absorbed. I mean, what happens? The bottom of the market just pushes. I don't know how it doesn't.
And it's that rising tide
Yeah.
lifting all boats, right? Which so we can't boil the ocean. We're not going to solve all of the country's problems with a YouTube channel, but we can help people get on the property ladder to be the investor that benefits from something like the rent trap. Imagine having the terrible situation where you don't want to sell your property because you're making enough money.
Yeah, exactly. I make $1,000 a month. Gosh darn it, I can't sell.
I
Yeah,
think
I mean, yeah.
I think we're going to continue to see that issue. We're going to see a continued strain, certainly on small multifamily in the market. Stuff is not coming to market. The stuff that is coming to market is unbelievably and outrageously priced.
So let's talk
And-
about that. Let's talk about that because we're talking bottoms up, right? Where typically all three of us, we do not play in Class A properties. We don't play there.
Yep.
It is fair to say that there is a record amounts of Class A inventory coming in the Sun Belt has been typically identified. Let's be clear. You are going to have Class A rent drops in the Sun Belt.
Yes.
Again, just like we talked about supply and demand bottoms up, if you add a whole bunch of supply and you go into an economy that's weakening or the consumer is scared, your absorption rate's going to suck. So there are some markets where, especially in large multifamily Class A, I see rent drops for the same exact reasons, just the reverse of the cake.
Which is compressed margin.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
yeah,
it's going to be massively compressed margin. That's what I think is going to put some places in trouble. Right?
Yeah. It could go negative.
Yeah,
If the debt's
absolutely.
bad. Yeah.
There, my 350 square foot studio in one of my cities. They just published the price, $2,465.
350 square feet.
$2,465 a month, not including a parking space.
So I did the math in your update this morning, Mike. You shared a story of 400 and something square foot house that sold for a certain amount. And I did the math and wrote it down. It was over $600 a square foot.
Yeah.
And so when we see luxury coming down in price, it seems like all houses come down. And Matt's pointed this out. So the homes that we want to buy to invest in, the single family and the small multifamily, those prices can go up, but the market can look like it's came down. Same thing with rents. In 2009 and 10, Class C rents went up significantly. But luxury came down so far that if you look at the charts of overall rents for 2009 and 10, it looks like they went down, even though so many people went through foreclosure that became renters, that rental demand for Class C properties went up and caused rents to go up. So I think we're going to see more of that as there's more impact to luxury.
Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely see that. Well, let's talk about that story this morning, because again, I get annoyed when Crash Bros say facts, but are disingenuous. And the fact here is new home prices are down 15% from the peak. Factually correct. Unfortunately, they don't say the next phrase, was product mix and location and square foot and all those other things. I'll say it right now. I predict that new home prices are going to crash another 15 or 20%. Yes, I said it. they're going to crash another 15 or 20%. But this is why we are seeing more and more home builders build homes under 1,000 square feet.
Mhm.
That's a good thing.
Yep.
That's a good thing. But it will yank the median home price of a new home down if you sell a lot of them. That's how math works.
It's true. I mean, you're looking at in our area, 1,200 square foot homes, $740,000. That's a joke, man. That is a joke. But here's the thing. It's not like, oh, those greedy builders. They are materials and labor cost plus. They look at it and say it's going to cost me 600 to build it, all in. And so I need to make my 10% or my 15%, and
Right.
boom, there you go. And at the end of the day, everyone can sit there and shout at the sky all they want. The people that sit there and say rents are unaffordable, it's unaffordable to them. It's unaffordable
Right.
to you. You can't afford it. I don't have 30% vacancy rate.
Yeah, I don't either. I think my
You know?
vacancy rate's less than 1% right now.
Yeah, we just went through a shift because we went through a number of evictions that were finalized.
Mhm.
And so we took the opportunity end of last year, beginning of this year, to basically redo those units.
Sure.
And so we have them hitting. And Mike, I can tell you, up in Siberia,
Hmm.
we do not rent in January and February because no one wants to move in 10-degree weather with
course.
snow on the ground.
Yeah.
But we're still renting these units. There's been
Oh,
a couple
wow.
that have hung out, and I've just said, you know what? Let's just throw a I wish number on it. And we're getting I wish numbers. We're still the numbers are still there, like two bedrooms, 700 square feet, 2,200.
Hmm.
That's Mike, that is eons past, even 5 years ago, what we're on the market for. So let's just say they go down a little bit. Let's just say the market somehow finds some supply somewhere and they go down to 1,800. That's still almost 3 times what it was when I started investing in this city 15 years ago.
Hey, Zuber, have you ever heard me and Matt talk about when we want our leases to end and how we disagree on that?
Yes.
No, let's go. Let's have that.
So,
Yeah.
this is me using what from defensive tactics, which is called a step 45. I'm going to come at it at a different angle. A lot of people will say the words, and Matt does, and he's right. He is absolutely right for his market. I'm in a different market, right?
Yes.
But you're seeing that in this current market, even it makes sense for you now, but it doesn't normally. Most people say, I want my leases to end in the summer because nobody wants to move in the winter. It's really hard to find a tenant. Let's break down what they just said. Nobody wants to move in the winter. I have almost all of my leases, except for right now, I think 2, end between November and February. So I have
Sly dog.
extremely
You sneaky
limited
guy.
tenant turnover. They don't want to
Right.
move. They're
They
in the
don't
middle of
wanna
the school
move.
year. It's cold. There's snow on the ground today. There's actually snow on the ground here.
Really? Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So where Matt lives totally makes sense. You'd set your lease. And if you have a small portfolio, I wouldn't do what I did and have most of mine in
No.
one. I would have, like, if you're signing 2 tenants at the same time in a duplex, I do a 6-month lease and a 12-month
Yeah.
lease. So
Spread
you're not
them out.
having turnover or the option of turnover at the same time, right? So there's some logic to it. But with 16 rentals, my goal is they're all in the winter. And so in a decade, I'm having my 5th tenant turnover total ever.
Wow.
Because one of the contributing well, I buy properties targeting limiting tenant turnover. I
Sure.
use the binder strategy, which keeps tenants happy, and then I put my leases in the winter. And I totally get it, Matt. When we disagree, we're both right. My strategy wouldn't work in Siberia. I'm not in
Yeah.
Siberia.
We've been running ads on all these. So it's really interesting, right? Is that the stuff that flies off the market is the stuff that is completely done, perfect, not dated. So we've done kitchens, we've done baths. That's the stuff that in this market right now is still flying off. The stuff that is what we would call dated, we have so many people applying. It really isn't new renters entering the market. It really is a bunch of Section 8 people looking for a better place than what they have right now. That's what we're seeing. And people evicted. That's what I'm seeing right now in the rent.
You've been a Section 8 landlord, let's call it a year and a half?
3 now, yeah.
Oh, wow,
Sadly.
3 years. Damn,
Yeah,
sadly.
Sadly.
I mean, in my market, I still believe this is true. I haven't checked in 6 months, but I'm sure it hasn't changed much. The waiting list is so long. They stopped taking vouchers.
Closed in Washington too.
Yeah,
So
closed.
stop taking vouchers. What's that? They've stopped giving people vouchers.
Giving vouchers. Yeah,
That
there's
doesn't mean there's no Section 8 tenants. It means that there's thousands who don't have a
thousands.
place.
Yes, there's a wait. So I think the last time I looked, the waiting list was 5 years. They stopped taking applications. It's closed. That's wild and it's only going to get worse, right? We just talked about the whole, more demand, less supply. Yeah, rents are going up, at least in it certainly feels that way in the C and B areas. I don't know how it doesn't.
Well, I'm not going to talk about the right or wrong of it or the right or left of
No.
it, but there was a program in Washington where they took about $16 million in funding for training away from veterans and gave it to foreigners, right? So I fought it in the Capitol for 2 years. Third year, it finally made it through. I don't know the amount of money. I would verify it before I would say a number. For the emergency housing for the sanctuary cities is going to come probably from what could be allocated to Section 8 or rent relief programs for citizens. So the money shifts around. The goal to the people who are watching a video like this is to be the landlord who's accidentally going to benefit from everybody throwing the money around like it doesn't matter.
I have a
Yeah.
question. I have a question for you guys. What has been the largest expansion of Section 8 in history? And I think the program was invented around the late 60s, early 70s. What was the largest expansion in Section 8 history?
No idea. Sounds like you know.
Yeah,
My
I'm saying-
guess would be 2009 or 2020.
Actually, now. No
Wow.
one is writing headlines around it. And they have
Now, when you say largest, you mean the largest increase in dollars is what you mean.
no. Largest so vouchers.
Oh, so people. Okay.
Vouchers. They're at about 2.25 million vouchers. And no one has talked about the fact that when 4 years ago, when we know what changed, that there were less than 2 million vouchers. Think about that. And now all of these cities are still out of vouchers. 2 out of the 3 cities that I work with they said, I literally can't give a new person a voucher.
Yeah, done.
And so now they're doing what Dion talked about, which is now they're even shutting down the lists where they're like, we can't even put you on the list for 3.5 years. Even though the waiting list is 3.5 years, we're still not even going to add your name. We can't. And so these guys would do what we're called voucher briefings. They do them about once a month. Nothing. They haven't done one for months. For 6 months, they haven't done a voucher briefing. For 6 months in some of the cities I'm working. So if you think the system is taxed now, you ain't seen nothing yet, because they're going to, I believe that they're going to continue to try to expand Section 8. They're going to,
I don't know how they can't, frankly.
Mike, they have to, just based on the principle that rents go up. The issue is that those rents, what it's going to end up happening is all of the money that's going into that program is going into rent increases. It's not going to new vouchers. It's going into rent increases. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. In my area, I have people fighting me on the number for rents. And my answer was, do you have any idea what Section 8 will pay for this unit?
Yeah.
The Section 8 drives up the non-Section 8 rents. The BA8
Absolutely
drives up the non-military rents.
Absolutely. Now, in this market, it absolutely does.
No, I've said that about Fresno for a long time. And you guys know that California is rent controlled, right? We have a cap of 5% plus inflation with a cap of 10%. So in 2023, it was 10%. We just got the number for 2024. It's 9.2. Right? So 10 and then 9.2, and who knows where it goes from here.
Didn't LA County finally expire on evictions?
I think they finally did sometime earlier. I think so.
I think here's
January.
all you're going to see there is 6-month eviction times.
Oh, probably longer. Yeah.
Like 3 years of pent up, I haven't paid, and now a bunch of people having to pay. And then somebody was like, I just feel bad for all those people getting evicted in LA. What are you dumb?
Well, I can tell you my
years.
worst situation. I took one of those. I chose, again, extreme ownership, right? So this is on me. I chose to help someone out in 2020, part of one of these programs. I put them in a brand new remodeled house because I thought it was the right thing to do. They never paid rent for, I don't know, it was 18 or 22 months or something like that. The program paid. So it wasn't like I was out of rent. I was collecting it. Program stopped. They never paid rent. Big long eviction time. Not only all of that, but they decided to destroy the house. They decided to, break the pipes, and they decided to, steal the wiring, and just all kind. It took me $38,000 to repair the house after we got them out. And I'll never do that again. I'll never be a part of one of those programs because I don't like I don't have tenant, calls. I take what they give. So not happening. I'll never be a part of one of those programs again. No chance.
So if I can give a cautionary tale, Matt, you had like 9 evictions all at once because their program ended. They've had free rent for over a year, and almost, I think one person basically worked out where they could come up with the rent or something. It was a horrible story. Okay to do it with a small section of your portfolio to try to
Yes.
be a decent human and help people out. I totally get it. I didn't do it because my portfolio is so small. It would have been a $38,000 expense to me in a year with 16 units. I don't like those numbers.
Yeah.
So here's the example. I talk about my 2 forms of diversifying, and one of them is I diversify my tenant base. I have about 1/3 military, 1/3 Section 8, 1/3 working or retired. So when we hear things like a new political regime comes in and Section 8 is just growing exponentially, I don't go and start renting all of my units to Section 8
Agreed.
because we're
Yeah.
potentially at a regime change, and that
Right.
can change. But a third, yeah, I'll benefit from it, and the BAH will benefit from it. And in both of those categories, driving up the rent on the working or retired, I'll benefit from it. But that diversifying is why I'm okay with it. But I'm with Mike on the ERAP. Like, I'll do Section 8, a percentage of it, but the emergency rental assistance program is designed for failure.
I will never do another one. Never. Don't. I've told my property manager to never, not even ask. Not happening. Nope. So what do you guys think about these smaller homes coming? Do you think this Lennar, I don't know the San Antonio builder, I should have looked it up, but San Antonio, they're building homes at 661 square feet. In, I think it's Paradise, Arizona, 996 square feet. What do you think about builders going smaller? Do you think it's part of the solution?
Builders are just idiots, Mike. They have no idea what they're doing. Like that's the sentiment by the public. Like they think they're just stupid. Like, oh no. You've watched a few videos on YouTube, so I'm sure you know all about it, right? I think everyone could really use a nice big fat slice of humble pie. Shut up, listen, and learn. Watch what these companies are doing and how they're navigating the process. They're not stupid. They're not dumb people. These CEOs, there's a reason that they make 1,000 times what the lowest guy on the totem pole makes. Very rarely do they make these massive tectonic plate shifting decisions that aren't validated by boards and by other executives. Sure, sometimes they make a mistake, but they're taking what the defense gives them. They recognize they can't build 4,000 square foot homes that are $1.3 million plus if they want to keep their people busy. They're going through. I have seen a number of development plans do something called recasting, just like that. So they recast the plan where the original plan was, hey, we're going to do 110 luxury units. And I just saw one recast and they said, we're going to do 160 workforce units. It's the same building, only slightly tiny bit larger to account for another stairwell, and that's what they did. They recast it. And did it cost them a bunch of money in engineering? Yep. But did they put themselves in a position where if you're smart, you're adding entry level or
that's
level?
Yeah, I agree with you. The builders, I'll speak about the public builders because those are the ones I can read the balance sheets and, or all of that. But they're basically, to your point, taking what the defense gives them. The market is hungry. I would almost say starving for entry-level homes. So supply the market. And here's this ought to piss off lots of people. They're going to make more money. Yep. It's just how the math is going to work. Oh, it's crazy. Good idea.
So every now and then I like to try to bring in kind of a new concept, right? Earlier it was there's the rate lock, I bring in the rent lock. So a lot of the times we talk about what would it take to lower home prices? It would be forced sellers, right? And there's
Correct.
forced sellers, you have death, divorce, downsizing, loss of job, whatever reason, right? But nobody talks about forced buyers.
Mm.
So forced buyers are people who their family grows to the point where they've been living with their parents, but now they have kids so that they don't want to live with the grandparents and they're going to move out. Or they get a divorce and both of them are buyers, not renters. So you have forced buyers. Well, what they do is they don't not buy a house. They buy less house. And less doesn't always just mean smaller or lower price. It could mean smaller with the same high price because the bigger one is a higher price. Or it could mean in a new area. They add a commute to their buy, or they change jobs to a 100% remote job and then move to where they can afford it. So the forced buyers are going to keep the prices, even as the houses become smaller as to what they're buying, and they buy bunk beds for their kids. Those prices aren't going to drop on those entry level. And then that's why you said the builders are going to make more money. They're finding people will pay more because they're buying less house.
Yes.
Forced buyers so they can build those new homes where a couple of years ago you couldn't because the impact fees of sewer, water to connect, it didn't make sense because it was basically the same for a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom, right? It was per ERU, right? Residential unit, not 2-bedroom or 4-bedroom. The impact fees were the same. Well, now they can do the high impact fees and get the price that justifies the smaller cost of building a smaller house.
Yeah.
Mike, we have a builder around us who's doing workforce housing. This is what it's considered. Housing has gotten rents have gotten so expensive that means that they are signing up for workforce housing, which gives them a massive tax credit at $2,116 per 2-bedroom unit.
Wow.
That's workforce housing now where we are. 2116. And they get a massive tax credit. Mike, those numbers are insane. On a lot of our 2-bedrooms, we are usually, 16 to 1800 tops. And these guys are getting a massive tax credit at 2116. It's amazing. It's
so let's try to bring this home in the last 8 to 10 minutes. Somebody in our communities, right? One rental at a time, Dion Talk, Lumberjack Landlords, trying to do the work, trying to find the deals. What should they do with the last 40 minutes? How should they take the last 40 minutes? I'll go to you, Dion, first.
That it's very easy to find an excuse to wait. And that I'm hoping they remember the 2 things that tell you when to buy. First, are you ready? Meaning you don't have something major going on in your life that takes away your mental focus from being able to actually get a good asset without making a bad decision. You've learned your market, your asset class, you've saved the down payment, closing costs, money for immediate repairs, and reserves. So that means you're ready. That has nothing to do with the market, right?
Agreed.
Then you found a great deal. And finding a great deal can be one of the 2 strategies that I've used. I've used speed, where I want an offer in quick, so that when they accept another offer, I just say mine's in second position. So when that person tries to negotiate too much, you take my offer, and half my portfolio was acquired that way. Or watch days on market and make those Patrick Bet David disrespectful offers. I purchased this one at 80% of list price,
Awesome.
which was my original offer. I didn't budge from it. And I had another one accepted at probably an 85% list offer. So that's what I would do. Make sure you're ready, hunt for the good deals, and don't get desperate. You might find the great deal tomorrow. You might find it in June of 2025.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. Matt, what should people do with the last 40 minutes?
Double down. Save more. Do more side hustle. Put more money. Create more dry powder. Do more research. Double down. Because it's just like anything is in a shifting market. You need to be the first one in your market to see the shift. And when you can identify that shift, and no broker is going to do it, real estate agents aren't going to do it, other investors likely, they get set in their path. They're probably not going to identify it. They're just like, hey, this is what's always worked for us. And so this is what we're going to do, because they recognize time in the market beats timing the market. And so they don't need to find the next big trend. They don't need to find the next big exposure that something has been created by a shift in the market. So if I'm in anybody's shoes, and then I'm newer to this, I'm doubling down. I'm finding a way to create more capital. I'm creating more relationships now. I'm creating a bigger network that we know leads to a bigger net worth. And I am focused on doubling down and stacking as much cash as I can possibly stack, because the time's coming. There's going to be a shift in the asset that you're watching, and you just better be ready. Be
Yeah.
ready, because you don't need, for people that are like, I just don't see enough deals. Who are you, JD Rockefeller? What do you need? What do you need? 30 deals?
Yeah.
No, you need a deal that looks really good because you've identified a pocket. That's what you
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
And you can't do that unless you're doubling down on doing that work.
Yeah, what I would tell someone is, first and foremost, you need to block people that are in your feed. There's going to be there is always been and will always be in the future partial facts to scare you. But let's be honest, that's on you. You have chosen to interact with that. You have chosen to watch that. And the algorithm is giving you what you want. So if you tell the algorithm you want to poison your mind, it's going to poison your mind. Don't tell me you're going to just watch for the other side. It is literally poisoning your mind. These people do not care about you. They are they are interested in the penny of a click that you give them. It's been proven over 5 years. Just stop the madness. Second, it's always hard. The hard changes from lending to buying to this to that. Third, wealth comes in a decade. The first 5, so everything I'm saying hasn't changed. It's just where we are. And then lastly, I guess I'll throw in the classic: inflation is a feature, not a bug. And if you know how to use it, go for it. So yeah, I agree. Double down. There's always an excuse. You got to be ready. Back to Dion's point. If you're asking some guy on the internet if you're ready, you're not ready. We'll go back the other way. Matt, closing thoughts, and where can they find you?
Lumberjack Landlord, YouTube and Instagram. It's going to be a busy week next week. It's going to be a busy week. I get home and I got 2 court cases, and I get to sit down with the IRS. So I'm super excited. I'm super excited for all those things. But again, double down, keep on doing the work. People don't understand. They don't, the respect that I have for an athlete that makes it to finally play in the majors. It's the tens. Listen, there's a reason why NHL clubs bring parents in for their kids' first game, because they realize it was a month of Sundays and it was a commitment to that child for a decade or 15 years of the practices and the travel games and the up at 5 a.m. for early ice and, all of this stuff. There's a reason they invite them to that. And it's amazing because most of the time you can see those parents and they're crying every single time the kid gets on the ice. Yeah. And it's because they knew what it meant. And you have to prepare the same way. It's that dedication and it's that making sure you're focused to get through it. You got it. Yeah. Got to do it.
Dion, closing thoughts, and where can they find you?
You can find me right here on YouTube, Dion Talk Financial Freedom, where I do my live streams every Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific, where it is my job to show you how to get ready. You don't need to ask me if you're ready, but it's my job to get you from the parking lot into the bleachers, into the stadium, and that's my goal. Show you how to get ready.
If you're still watching this video, I have a treat for you. If you wanted to ask the 3 of us a question, leave it below, and I will go through it and create a list of questions. Not a lot of people are going to be with us still. So if you're still watching, you have a unique opportunity. Put a question in the comments below, and we'll do our best to answer it next week. Guys, you're amazing. Take care.
Thanks, Mike.